human resource management during Covid-19.
Hello, my name is Nigel Job and I'm the founder of Remtec Talent Management, and I'd first of all like to thank the people who've organised MedTech World Virtual Summit for inviting me to come and talk to you today about why medical device companies need to compete even harder to hire and retain top talent during the Covid-19 crisis. Now, over the last 20 years, I've been helping medical device companies of all different sizes, from startups through to large corporates, find their key hires and also retain them. Now, during that time, there's obviously been recessions, there's been good times, there's been bad times, and a number of things can be observed through this. And that is one of the most critical things for any company, and it's obvious, of course, is if you want to grow, you've got to have the right people to enable that growth. And if you choose people correctly and then nurture them and retain them, then you will achieve that growth successfully and sustainably. Now, when something like this comes along, a massive shock to the global economic system, like none that we've seen, even in that 20 years, obviously, I've seen recessions. But when you see a shock like this, there is a temptation to think that everything has changed, that we need to look at things completely differently. And to some extent, of course, we do. But with respect to hiring and retaining top talent, a lot of the same things apply. But there are also a number of things which need to be really cautioned over. The first of which is that all of a sudden, because there are a number of unfortunate folk that are out on the market without a job, and sometimes that can be through no fault of their own, because perhaps a business has run out of money, perhaps it has laid a load of people off, but it's a mistake to think that because there are a number of those people out there, that all of a sudden it's an employer's market, that the employer is able to dictate the terms, that they're able to hire people easily. And this has been demonstrated over a number of previous recessions that this is not the case. Certainly there are opportunities for companies, and what I'm going to be discussing over the next few minutes are a number of ways to put yourself in the best possible position, maximize that opportunity in terms of making sure that those people that are available are coming and knocking on your door, but also looking at different methods which would apply probably to all times, but need to be really carefully honed in order to make sure that you've got a proper strategy for growth with respect to your people. So why am I suggesting that it's not an employer's market? Why is the employer not necessarily in the driving seat? Well, the reason is pretty simple and quite easy to get one's head around when you look at it. With the exception of those people that are proactively looking on the market, those are the people that either are out of work or they're people that feel that there is a reasonable possibility they may be out of work. You have the other large group, which is the group where if you're looking for the real top talent, the people that are perhaps in shorter supply, which, let's face it, if we're looking at MedTech, then most of the people you look at are not in abundance, then these people are now less engaging in terms of looking for a new role. So in other words, if you're engaged with, say, a search company, or maybe you decide to approach people through your own network, then those people are much less likely to actually engage with the process. So imagine yourself, for example. If you're in a role at the moment where you know there is a good future for you and therefore perhaps for your family as well, then are you really going to engage with a new position that comes along, however attractive it is, however much money is offered, however much advancement is offered? You've got to weigh up that risk against the fact that at the moment the times are very tough. So immediately you can see that whilst you might have gained as an employer in the fact that there may be these unfortunate folk out there who are out of work, you've lost a large part of what would be the normal marketplace for your talent, which are the people that are currently in work and might, under normal circumstances, be persuaded to take the role that you're looking for. You also have other challenges with respect to retention, bizarrely, which is how secure is your own environment? Have you had to actually make any layoffs or redundancies that mean that people within your own organisation feel less secure? So retention is also not a given in these circumstances. Certain situations will relate differently to different individuals, but in terms of hiring, the fundamental remains that in the MedTech sector, the majority of the people that you'll be looking at, whether they're senior leaders, whether they are regulatory people, R&D people, whether they're salespeople, these people will be certainly the real high flyers, the top people that you want to drive growth. They are going to be in even shorter supply than they would be normally, unless you get lucky. So it may well be that that regulatory person that you need, that senior regulatory person, is just the person that you need who has been laid off from a company that sadly run out of money. In which case, yeah, that's a good outcome for that individual. It's a good outcome for yourself as an employer. But what if that individual doesn't have, say, the Class 3 medical device experience that you require? They might be an applicant, and they will certainly apply to your job if they see you advertise it, but they won't necessarily be the best person to do the role. The best person to do the role may well be working for one of your competitors or a company that's very similar to yourself, but you can't access that person because however good the search company you use or however good your relationship might be with those types of people, you will not persuade them in the current environment, or certainly not easily. So in terms of how we resolve that, let's look at potential solutions to that particular issue. So the reality is that all employers at the moment, certainly if they're looking for people of high quality, those that I would call the top talent, the people that are in the kind of 20% bracket, the top 20% of their peers, if you're really looking for those people to help drive your growth, you're going to have to compete just as hard now as you did before the pandemic. And there are a few ways in which you can do that to ensure that those real top talented people actually come to you when either they're looking for work, i.e. those ones in the group I described earlier, the ones that are proactive, but also those that when they're approached give your company a really good hearing. So the first thing that you can do is really ensure that you have a very good employer brand. Now, a lot of the very large companies, and those of you that are watching from a large company may think, hey, yeah, we're doing pretty well on that. And I haven't got time to obviously discuss all of the elements of employer branding, but it actually can be looked at not just at the employer level, but also at the hiring manager level. So it's really important, if you're a hiring manager, to actually consider why would an individual want to do this job and why would they want to leave a role in which they're reasonably happy at the moment to do this job. So it's absolutely essential that you think, even if you're not in sales, you kind of think like a salesperson. You have to actually put yourself into the mind of the potential applicant and really think about what we call the employee value proposition. Why would I want to take this role and why would I want to remain with this organization? So that employer branding and the selling of the opportunity to the individual is absolutely essential, and it becomes even more essential during this crisis where there is a reticence, certainly by a large number of the people you might want to attract, to actually move roles at the moment. So let's assume you've got the employer branding piece sorted and you know that when individuals are going to be looking at your company or looking at this particular role, they're potentially excited about it, then that's a really good start. The other place that's a really good position to really consider hard before you even start approaching anybody is to consider what great looks like. Now, there's some potential risks with this question, because the real risk, as I'm sure you're aware, which is a big subject within HR, is obviously the diversity issue. If you simply just look to find people who are similar to you or similar to people that have previously worked for the company, you're really not opening your net enough. And this is an opportunity now where you can say, okay, let's really make sure we open the net so that we're looking at people with diverse backgrounds, so that we're really focusing on what genuinely great looks like. So we're looking at those people who've really got the skills to do the role, and we're going to proactively approach those individuals that have the skills to do the role, even though they may have gone to a different university or they may come from a different type of company to the company we've hired from previously. So it's really, really important that you actually focus down on what is great for this role and what could great be like in the future, because your role will certainly not be the same in a year or 2 years to what it is now. So really focusing on what that person could be, but also then putting down a well thought out job description, not the one that you had for the same role 2 years ago, the one that is required for now, and really make the document itself as well a selling point which you can use when you're trying to tempt in these reticent candidates. Focus on what the role can be, what it will be, and what you'd like it to be, so that you can really define what great looks like, and then think about how you're actually going to approach those candidates and get them to engage with your process. So if you're hiring, you now know what sort of person you want to bring on board. So how are you going to go about doing that? Well, there's obviously a number of different routes that you can go to actually hiring people. At the moment, people are obviously going to try advertising because they will get a number of applicants. But my advice is you really need to look at a number of different ways of attracting candidates. If you're just simply using one particular methodology, you're perhaps not serious enough. You really need to be looking at a range of different ways to attract those people, particularly if you're concentrating on the group, which, as I say, is more reticent. So it's a little bit like, for those of you that are maybe in marketing, it's a little bit like a marketing mix. If you were trying to promote a new product, you wouldn't just simply use one methodology. You would want to use a range of methodologies. Now, whether you use people internally to manage all of those different methodologies, or whether you outsource that to a company, that's up to you. But my recommendation is, if you're really serious about getting people that can help drive your growth, you need to think about making sure you're properly accessing the market, so that some of these people who are a little bit more reticent can be engaged with. And if you've got your message right, you will manage to hire them. Now, obviously, I mentioned in the title about retention. One of the key drivers of retention is hiring right in the first place. So if you hire individuals that just happen to be available at the moment because these poor individuals are out of work, and they'll maybe say that they'll take a step down, do think very, very carefully about their motivations. It's very, very easy to say, yes, this person can do the job. So if I go back to the example I gave earlier about the regulatory person with class 3 device experience, if that person's out of work, they may well say, yes, I'll accept a role which is less money than I was earning previously, not such a broad remit, because they need a job. Now, is that the right thing for you as a company, or the right thing for them longer term? Because the likelihood is, if they feel they've been kind of lowballed in terms of the job offer, either in terms of responsibilities or in terms of salary, the likelihood is they're going to be looking to move again in a very, very short period of time. Then you've got the whole process all over again. So think very carefully about broadening your net in order to focus on retention. It's a known fact that people who take roles when they are out of work, understandably will take roles that they wouldn't have taken had they not been in that situation, and as a consequence tend to have shorter tenures within that role afterwards. It doesn't always follow, and I'm not suggesting there aren't some great people out there that are currently between jobs. There are, and if you can attract those, then by all means hire them, but do compare them with others, because that's an important piece as well. So overall, my message to you today is, if you're going to be hiring, you need to be also thinking about retention. And when you are hiring within this challenging time, utilize a lot of the same methodologies you would before, but a certain amount of caution is needed to make sure that you're really applying a very rigorous process in order to make sure that you get the right people that are really going to drive the growth for your business and be the right people when we're out the other side of this particular crisis.